here we are again, back at the good old drawing board. I was working on the van the other day, and I finally hooked up the heater core, and it's been working fine. Went to start it up yesterday and wanted to make sure that all the air had burped out of the cooling system, and when I opened it up, I had a bunch of coolant kind of spray out. Not a huge waterfall, but enough for me to be concerned. So today we're going to go over a quick and easy check for head gaskets. Now there are other ways to test. There are chemical tells, leak down tests and all that stuff. Pretty much for what I want to do today is just verify that I'm building up air pressure in the cooling system from what I suspect is going to be a leaking head gasket. Generally you should be able to start a van or start a vehicle with the radiator cap off cold, and over a while it'll start boiling up as it reaches temperature, and it takes a while. When you open up the cap and start it when it's cold, nothing else should happen. It shouldn't spit, spew, fire out, anything along those lines. When I opened up the cap, it started spraying out. Again, wasn't heavy. That tells me that when it's completely cold, that extra pressure is being added into the cooling system. What I suspect is happening and what we're going to test in a few moments. This is a real half-assed version of a piston in a combustion chamber. Piston goes down, piston comes up, your valves open and close. That's how it, overall the engine works. This isn't so much about that, but what I'm suspecting is happening is, and I hope this pen works, the piston comes down and the intake valve is open. It creates a vacuum in here so there's no pressure. The piston moves down, pulls your air mixture in, no pressure. The valve will then close when the piston is at bottom dead center. The valve closes, and what that does is that seals off the combustion chamber. Ultimately in combustion, the piston will come up with the air-fuel mixture, it'll fire, forcing the piston down, and then it goes on to the rest of the cycle. Right here with everything sealed, you got the valves that are closed, there's nothing else open in it. The piston here starts traveling upwards. From here, it'll squeeze that mixture. It'll compress it for spark, for it to fire off. If there's any kind of weak spot, and in this case I'm suspecting there's a leaking head gasket, it's a gasket that if this was the head itself, there'd be a gasket that goes here, and then the top of the head, the part with the combustion chamber, the valves, the spark plug will go up on top of there. Somewhere in there, a weakness has been created, allowing this compressed gas to prematurely leave the cylinder. Most likely, it's going to be the head gasket. It's a gasket about this thick that seals the head to the engine. What I'm suspecting is because the van is a 1965, and with the mileage I think it is, I think it's the original head gasket. I think over time it just disintegrated. That's what I'm expecting to find. Other problems are you can have cracks in the cylinders, you can have cracks inside the head somewhere, which is common on some motors. We didn't have an overheating problem. We had no heating issues with the van, so I'm not suspecting a crack, though it is possible. I'm suspecting a head gasket. You'll have cylinders on either side with a little bit of a space, got little holes for coolant to go through, all these little areas right here, right here. If you have them on this side, right here, when the piston comes up and creates that pressure, the weakest point is going to be where it leaks to. Because the engine's running fine, I'm not overheating, I'm suspecting that when pressure builds up, the pressure is going into one of the coolant ports, not into another cylinder, and creating that pressure. So we're going to go do a really quick test. This is not an official test. That'll just confirm that I'm getting unnecessary pressure buildup due to compression in the motor. So hang tight. We're going to go to the van. It's 43 degrees outside. We're going to test it anyways. Alright, we are at the van. Got the sun right in my face. Talking about a cooling pressure tester. This is one of the ones that I used when I was in the shop. my good old-fashioned reliable snap-on one. You don't have to use snap-on. I was working at a shop, I needed something reliable. This thing's older than the hills, but it works great. Ultimately, what you do to use it, you apply this, perhaps some kind of adapter to fit onto the radiator. When this is on, this is an air pump, and it'll actually pump up, usually pressurize the radiator to see if you have any leaks. I'm just going to hook it up and use this gauge right here, and pretty much with the engine running when it's cold, I should not see any changes. I'm going to be looking to see if pressure builds rapidly in here, and that's going to tell me that I have some kind of leak. That will tell me that I've got pressure, combustion pressure going into the coolant jackets. So I just simply put it on. It's locked in there. We're looking at the gauge. Alright, so that's the gauge. Right now it's on 0, which is right there. I'm going to crank the engine over. It's going to start, and I'm going to watch that gauge and see what happens. See from when we started a few moments ago, it was on 0. The pressure's building up very slightly, but it shouldn't be building it up really at all. What I was expecting now is for it to move up a lot faster, and this isn't the case. Right now we're about 2.5 pounds of pressure. Another test that I would do to verify that it was combustion gas is they have a kit called a block tester. And what the block tester is, it's a little vial, clear vial, that goes in instead. It's got a special chemical. When you put it on top of the radiator and the whatever fumes come out of the radiator, there's a chemical reaction. The fluid starts off blue, and if you have combustion gases which are coming through, it reacts, and it changes to green and then yellow if you've got combustion gases coming through the cooling system. I still don't like this because we're now about 4 pounds. It's building up pressure a little bit. That tells me I probably have a small seep hole in the head gasket. Some of the concerns are also with cracks in the head. I never had any overheating issues. I've got a lot of age in the van, and we're not sure the miles. It's somewhere between 100,000, 50,000, more or less. We don't know. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. This tells me that there's probably a problem, a small problem, but it'll turn into a problem really quickly. Yeah, because we're up to about 6 pounds. I could do the block tester, and it might tell me what I'm suspecting now and confirm that it is a head gasket which is leaking. I've got the head gasket set already on order, and I talked to the machine shop as far as cleaning the head, so I'll let the pressure out slowly. Put it back together, and we're going to call it a day. Always be careful when you're working on a cooling system. It could be hot, fumes, chemicals, all that stuff. Make sure you're following all the right safety precautions and procedures. But that is a quick test on seeing if you have a blown head gasket. Stay tuned for when we pull it all apart, just to put it all back together.